Hi, Asheeka. Welcome to Driven by Data, X Beauty by the Numbers. We're really excited to have you here today, and have you on board with this initiative. Do you want to kind of start off by explaining to us a little bit about yourself, all the kind of what you've been up to in the retail industry at the moment, and yeah, we can go from there.
So lovely to meet you, Emily, again. And so, yes, I am Asheeka Hyde. I work for Dunelm, and I work as head of trading analytics, which essentially means I'm responsible for three key areas. So I look after commercial analytics, so doing the right thing for the business and our customers, both in store and online. I also look after stores operations. So that's just about having the right stores in the right place with the right products for our customers. And then finally, I also have a small data science team. And I've been in retail for about, I think, 12 of my 16 years career, so mostly spent in retail. I do like retail because I think it's the industry that I relate most closely to. You will find me out in stores, spying on customers, seeing what they do, or just walking around competitors as well. So yeah, it is very much my world, retail.
No, that's fab. That's fab. I spend a lot, maybe too much of my time shopping as well, especially in Dunelm. Actually, most of my bedroom is currently from that. So yeah, I can feel that. What set the scene for me a little bit? What does a day in the life look like for a senior data leader in a retail brand?
Yeah, so it's lovely to hear that you are like a Dunelm customer. That always makes me happy. Uh, so in my day, I guess primarily my job is around trying to identify those big business opportunities that data and analytics can really inform and change how the business perceives them and the impact we have. So I do spend a lot of my time trying to build the relationships in the business to be able to have that kind of influence and provide those
Mhm.
opportunities for my team to get involved and really deliver value
Yeah.
in the business. I also spend I think fair amount of time really thinking about how to balance the portfolio of work we have, because it needs to deliver value for the business, it needs to be able to help drive the business strategy, but at the same time I want to provide enough opportunities in that portfolio of work for it to be exciting and motivating for my analysts as well.
Yeah.
So that mix of what the portfolio looks like is really important, and I do spend a lot of time thinking about that. And I think productivity of the team is something that I spend time thinking about as well. And I think my own productivity as well. So I always like to think of myself as this person I can keep lots of plates spinning in the air at the same time and
Yeah.
multitasking. But if you really think about it, actually it is being able to do multiple things, yes, but not at the same time. And I've
Yeah.
realized that my productivity can change based on the amount of context switching I'm doing. So I've started to kind of try this thing of having dedicated days for areas. So like I was talking about the three areas I worked in. So I have a day each week where I try and do all my stakeholder meetings, my one-to-ones for one area on that day. And I
Yeah.
found that it helps really drive my productivity up.
Yeah.
So so I'm trying to do that with the wider team as well, where we're trying to do less of context switching and trying to
I've
deliver more.
I've found actually recently, even in my own work, that sometimes when you've got so many different tasks to be doing and you try and do everything in one day, you're actually doing you might be sort of achieving everything, but not to the best level that you could have done it. Whereas if you sort of time block different times to different things, and nothing is ever really that much for us, and if it is urgent, you do it first and then you just
Yeah.
work on it in a different way. But I used to do that quite a lot, and it's definitely good to sort of designate different times to different things. And how have your kind of team picked up on that? Are they
Yeah,
adapting to it
so
well?
we've been doing like agile for a while now, so it does
Yeah.
give you that time to concentrate on projects. But I think what we've been trying to do is just refine that a little bit more and be a little bit more challenging of each other, and
Yeah.
making sure that we're not trying to do too many things at the same time. And I think a lot of it does fall into, I guess, my leadership team and me, to make sure that we are managing that workload coming into the team, because it's so
Yeah.
easy to have so many urgent things at the same time and that everything needs to be done. So making sure we're having those conversations, stakeholders, and saying let's pick the real focus areas. Let's not just do a bit of everything, which amounts to very little of real value.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I can really understand that. And how have you gone about sort of driving a data-driven culture within Dunelm?
So this is something that's a real area of interest, right? So I can talk about it for a very long time. So I'll try and limit what I do. So I think there's a few things that I've discovered are just really crucial to success, right? So I think firstly, just having really senior stakeholders absolutely bought into what you're doing, because it's kind of almost not worth starting without that. And then I think secondly, it is about having that data freely available and accessible so that people can actually use it. And so adoption is frictionless, you have the right tooling in place. And then the talent management side of it, tooling without training, might as well throw that money away, right? So it feels like having that talent strategy to underpin your data strategy and your business strategy is really important. And for those latter two, I think that partnership between data and analytics teams and HR and tech is really crucial, because we can't do it all on our own. It's not our core competence. So having those partnerships is really important. But because I was very, very curious about this topic, I picked it up as like my dissertation topic in my MBA, because what I was really curious about was, we know this stuff, there are lots of consultancies, there's a lot of research, and yet you hear that it's really hard to actually implement, and real life success is actually quite rare. So it got me curious about, what are those practitioners who are successful doing, and are there any gaps that we haven't discovered along the way? And I think what I found was that it's more around how you do it rather than what you do. So I think we're very good on what we need to do, but it's the how. So I think the first thing was around really understanding that this is culture change. This isn't a data program or a tech program. And if you think about it as culture change, then you need to develop the empathy to really step into the shoes of the people you're asking to change, right? We are data guys. For us, this just feels normal, but it isn't for everyone else. So really understanding. And so that allows you to then make this culture change program relevant to people. And then doing that through storytelling can really help, because we're all natural storytellers. It's just how human beings learn. And so it's much easier for people to really understand the value and the relevance and get excited about it. So instead of just being part of the journey, if people actually want to be involved, it's a very different program then. And I'd say the change management structure around it as well, because it is a big program and it's not something for just the data teams to lead. So having that change management structure across the organization working with you. So those things, I think, from my small study, but from my study, those are the gaps that came out. So I thought I'd share those today.
Have you ever come across like a situation where there's been a company or a certain, I don't know, like people that really, really struggle to pick up on the importance of being data driven? I know that you said sometimes you obviously step into their shoes. I think there's obviously some situations where you step into someone else's shoes, but sometimes they still don't or might not get it. Is there a way that you'd go around that to try and change that maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have worked in an organization where, I think it was always seen as something important, not urgent. There were lots of burning platforms. And so it was like only the urgent stuff got done. So it was really about how do you elevate this into a sense of urgency. And my CTO helped create like what we call the slide of death. It was essentially showing that, if you don't make this change, the company might not be here. And so it was fair. And it's not always the best strategy, but it can concentrate the mind quite often. Trying to excite people and take them on the journey is better, and longer term that would be pivoted into quite quickly, because we wanted people to concentrate on it but also enjoy, because it's a long journey. But to initially get their interest, that's what we had to do, kind of almost go like, you need to do this and you need to do this now, and these are the reasons why you need to do it, otherwise it might be too late. So creating that sense of urgency can help.
course. I think as well, I think that kind of shows if some people maybe aren't willing to get on board with the company becoming data driven, then they might not potentially be the right talent for that for that business maybe going forward, because it's such an important thing, and I think it is sometimes difficult to get people on board. But if they're not willing to get on board, if there's not sort of a personal incentive for them, maybe. So obviously the main incentive is that the business can, do you know what I mean, improve and kind of go forward. And maybe if they're not willing to kind of go forward, they might not be what that business needs at that time.
Yeah, and I think, you know, every business, like if you look at the technology change adoption curve, they're the early adopters, and then the masses who come through, and then they're the late adopters. And I think you'll find something that with data and analytics as well. I think it's a real change. I you know, the whole empathy thing, I came to that quite late, and it was thanks to an exec member taking me away and saying to me how, you know, you keep talking about data driven, and you tell me that the benefit comes from delegating decision making, because that's what makes it faster, and that's why it makes the organization more agile and stuff like that. And I was saying to him, yeah, and he was like, but I've never delegated any decision making. I've got to the point where I have, because I trust the decisions I make. And how can you convince me to trust the people in my team to make those decisions, because they've never made decisions? And so it's a huge, humongous change if you see it from the point of view of him. And you know, and the business teams can be really strong. So sometimes they might be people who you get to later, or it might be about trying to kind of then solve that problem of maybe building trust in the organization. And that's why I think it's just not just a data thing, because that's a bigger thing. And we did create a exec development program to help them deal with that change. As a result of that conversation. But so you will have the late adopters. And yes, there might be some people at some point in the journey who might be very late adopters, who might decide it's not the right thing for them. But actually, you know, if it's a strong business leader who's really got the insight and the vision to lead that area, then I think trying to take them on that journey and making that connection, even if it's slightly later, is something worth trying.
I think that just again kind of highlights the importance of someone like yourself in a business, or other heads of data and stuff like that, to really have that leadership side to them, and sort of personable skills, as well as obviously all the kind of intel on the data. But how, this is obviously quite a broad question, but how do you go about sort of developing the best analytics strategy for a retail brand like Dunelm?
So I mean, ideally, you know, either if you ask me like of a perfect dictionary definition, I'd say, you know, analytics strategy needs to deliver value, underpin the business strategy, and be exciting and motivating to the team, right? And that all sounds really great on paper, and it's really hard to deliver in real life. So and my experience has mostly been in organizations where we are on the earlier side of the digital transformation journey. So I'd say it's very much about building trust in the early days. Like, how can you get the key decision makers identified, of those who do you think might be the early adopters, and then how do you build trust with them? So in a new organization, you can benefit from having a mentor who's been there for a while, who can kind of help you identify these individuals. And then it's about getting those quick wins under your belt so that they do think that you're valuable. And one of my friends suggested to me, and this works very often, is buying people time. So if you do something for them as a quick win that gives them back some of their time, then you can kind of legitimately ask for a certain portion of that back to have a discussion with you. And so that's something that I use quite a bit and tends to work. And I think the next stage is showing people the art of the possible. So, you know, everybody's heard of AI and currently generative AI, right? And it's all like very futuristic, this vision of analytics. And it's exciting. People are talking about it, but it's also kind of frustrating at times, because there's so much you can do with just basics and getting the foundations right. So getting people excited about that is a bit harder. But showing people the art of the possible and just how many problems that can solve in itself does unlock that. So I think that art of the possible And then once you have those two things in place, then you can start talking to the business about their biggest business problems. So I have people who've like hesitated to speak to me because they're like, I don't know what my analytics problem is. And I'm like, you don't need to. That's like kind of literally my job description, to understand your business problem, identify if there is an analytics solution, and then, you know, kind of structure that analytics solution for my team.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. Just share with me, like, one of the questions I like asking is like, you know, what keeps you awake at night, right? Like, is something that you're really excited about, something really concerned about. I won't have a solution to all of them, but I will likely have a solution to a lot of it. So it's about getting to that place of trust where they will tell you their biggest business problems. So now you know what the business problems are, you know what the business strategy is, and, you know, you can kind of, in that context, start to develop a analytics strategy that'll underpin that, help deliver to those problems the solutions that you need in the most effective way. And it also gives you the flexibility, because actually you can't solve all problems at the same time, but it gives you that flexibility to build that mixed portfolio that is exciting to the team. So I think that's how I'd go about it. It takes a long time, but it's worth it. Yeah.
How do you go about getting them excited? I know you obviously spoke about being empathetic with them, so sort of getting in their shoes. How would you go about getting them excited about the strategy? Is it kind of showing them that you could solve their business problems with the analytic?
Yeah, so I think, you know, once you've kind of done those quick wins, most people are, you know, open to the idea that, oh yeah, this person's helpful to me. They might not know how helpful I can be, but they've kind of opened the door a little bit. And I think once you've got the foot through the door, it's a lot easier. And then there's a bit of the art of the possible, because people don't. So like an example I give is like, you know, when we first brought Tableau into a previous organization, a lot of reports that senior exec were asking for was really flat reports. And it was like, and I was just kind of going like, why are they asking for this? Because this tool is capable of so much more. And then I realized they've never actually seen what Tableau could do. They've seen PowerPoint and they've seen PDFs, and they're just basically asking for that in this new tool. And so we did these art of the possible workshops where we got like a little piece of data which was relevant to them, where there was an error and was relevantly recent data, and they kind of went like, that doesn't look right. And we're like, oh, well, what do you want to look at next? Then we could drill down and we could do it all live. And we had like about 40-minute workshops, and the idea is to do this for about 10-15 minutes and then have a discussion. And we had no time for discussion. They were so interested and so excited by what was possible. And that changed what then, you know, because then the conversation became not about, I want this. It was like, oh, can you do this? I don't know if it's possible, but can you do this? So they were a bit more open about, you know, now just asking big open questions rather than telling me what they need. Yeah.
It's a really exciting way to go about it.
Yeah, and that really made a difference to the quality of work we could do, because it, you know, they were willing to open up that discussion.
Yeah,
no,
definitely. I think that's a really good way to go about it, because you're kind of showing them the benefit, and then they're more kind of aware of why they should be doing it. I think another key question that we come a lot in the retail sort of industry is the importance of attracting the right talent as well. So I know we spoke about that a lot previously, but how do you go about attracting the best talent, both kind of creative and data driven?
All right. I think data driven usually kind of comes with the job description. So I think most people probably are. I think what I look for is like, I guess, curiosity about data, you know, like they're just genuinely curious about what is the data telling us and how can we use that to impact the business. So curiosity along the whole process of actually landing the value as well, not just curiosity about doing the most technical solution possible. So I do look for people who get at least some of their, I guess, job satisfaction from seeing it happen in the real world as well. But on the creative side, and I know there are individuals out there who are massively creative and innovative, but in my experience, I've also seen creativity something you can foster. So, you know, if you brought together a group of people who just think differently, but are highly skilled and have that mutual respect, where they are happy to challenge each other, to agree to disagree, and then work towards a common solution. Quite often creativity comes from there. And
Yeah.
then creativity, of course, comes from, like, I guess, need. You say necessity is the mother of invention. That's very true. So
Yeah.
I always think that my job, part of it is to provide that need. So, provide those big business problems where there is an interesting opportunity to think of a innovative and different analytic solution. So
Yeah.
having those in the portfolio. And I think the other part is to put together a team that is cognitively different and cognitively diverse. And that's kind of looking for individuals and seeing what is that one key strength they're bringing into the team that they're very good at, that will buy them the respect of the team in a way. But also there are people who are, curious and willing to listen and learn, and will add to that discussion. And then bringing those individuals together into the team, and then making the opportunities for them to have the time to develop that. It's like a strange way of saying it, but to get comfortable enough with each other that they can be uncomfortable and have those challenging conversations. And I think a lot of that comes from work, but a lot of it also comes from like social interactions with each other. So, providing those opportunities in the team. And then finally also like making sure that we then provide the time and space, because this takes time. If you're getting big groups together. So what you don't want is a workload, which means people have to work alone, because then you're never going to get that, creativity that you were trying to foster. So making sure that you can bring groups of people together on projects. And so those are the kind of things I think the role I play in making that happen.
Do you think that obviously, like, since COVID, we've had this, everyone started to work remotely. So does that, obviously, if you're trying to get people in a room and trying to get them to kind of foster a relationship where they can be uncomfortable with each other, do you think remote working makes a difference to that at all?
I think it does and it doesn't. So I worked on international for a long time in my previous organization, and we never traveled. I had a very little child. I didn't want to travel, so we didn't travel. And it was like, Mexico, Chile, Norway, Thailand. So other than Norway, there was a different language as well. But you learn to, it takes time, but you learn to develop those relationships and, develop that trust. And I think it is about taking the time. And I think that's why that investment in time upfront. So we do try and do things in our teams, like we'll do like brainstorming sessions where, people will come and just have a chat of whatever is their worry. We have like a virtual tea, we can just jump on and have a chat. We do like quizzes, we do board games, which is in person generally, but they're, board games you can play online. So we try and make opportunities in the team. I also have like in my area a daily thing. I call it Peak and Base, and it's a bit of a silly name, but the idea is just come and talk about your highlights of the day, or your, just things that went terribly wrong. Not everybody jumps on the call every day, but it's there if people want to. There always a few people. So just providing enough opportunities and making it okay for people to do that, right? Because people do think, oh, that's not work time, but actually it is. It's crucial to having good work relationships. So
I really, at the end of our day, we all kind of put into a group chat about like what our wins of the day are. And it's definitely good, because it makes you feel like you can kind of assess what you've accomplished in that day. And then if something has gone wrong, there's someone to talk to about the way forward from that. Whereas if you kind of deal with it on your own, sometimes you're a bit like, oh my God.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a bit too much.
Yeah. And I think those moments of being able to celebrate or rumble together, they actually are quite uniting, aren't they?
They are definitely.
Yeah.
Obviously the retail industry and data at the moment is a very exciting space. I think we're taking a lot of leaps forward in recent years. What are the kind of biggest opportunities you can see the industry kind of facing in the future?
This is that's a really good question. Okay, so I think customers is probably a really big one. So, like lockdowns made a real drastic change in so many different ways, right? People have been forced online. So like my parents would have never, like, then I worked for a credit card company and they still didn't buy a credit card. It was like they didn't trust it, but then suddenly they have credit cards and they've not given them up now.
Yeah.
So people have gone online and done things which they never thought they'd do before. There are people, it's technology's been pushed for over 10 years. There are businesses who didn't have an online presence, and now online's a really big part of their proposition. So what customers are doing and what the expectations of businesses has changed. People are expecting a much more seamless journey, whether it's whichever channel they're interacting with, they expect you to know who they are and talk to them with one voice. There's also a lot more awareness of local and community and the social sides of businesses, and that's becoming more important. So I think understanding who your customers are, what their requirements are of you as a business, for them to choose you over everyone else, and then being able to meet your customers there is one of your biggest challenges, but also one of your biggest opportunities in retail. And that's going to be crucial, how you do it, and doing it authentically is really important.
I think it's really interesting as well, because a lot of sort of retail leaders that I've spoken to before, it's such a big change for the industry, because we're used to having so many high street stores, and kind of the main way to probably attract a customer would be like where you were based on that high street, or the experience that you'd get when you go into the store. But to have such a drastic change to now go online, it's how do you make yourself different? How do you attract that customer in comparison to other brands that might be doing the same, when it's more difficult to provide kind of like a personalized service? That's something that I find interesting.
I mean, people have gone back into stores a lot, and
Okay.
being a stores person, loving stores, I did think that would happen, but I also kind of hoped it would happen, because you heard a lot of people saying it wouldn't. Stores are still a really, really important part of the ecosystem, but that seamless journey, and that being able to join your online with stores, because obviously most people have a lot more choice online. There's a lot more competition in some ways, so being able to join that and make that as one offer to your customer, and how do you do that, it's becoming more and more important. But absolutely, that thing of sense of real loyalty towards, we went to that one store, we always shop there. There'll still be people like that, but that's becoming a little bit more like flexible. People are more willing to try different things and try different places, and online seems to have opened a whole new world. So and I think the other thing is like ethics and data. I've kind of seen a lot of surveys where they're saying customers are becoming a lot more aware of data usage and what data means to them, and of data security. But the reality is that data and analytics people understand this far, far more than anyone else. And so it really does feel like on us to be sure that we have really good, ethical standards that we've developed, that we stick to, because our ability to save data and compute data has grown so much. So it really is about making sure that when we do this work, it is definitely absolutely in the service of the customers and for doing the right thing by them. And we need to make sure we're doing that, because otherwise I think that will become like, and it's an opportunity to differentiate as well, I think, to really be seen as doing the right thing. And
I think we've seen it before.
Sorry.
I think we've seen it before as well, where companies probably haven't had the best use of or haven't made, they've made mistakes when it's come to using data that essentially they probably shouldn't have used. And I think it ruins that relationship with the customer that you take so long to build and retain, to then lose it for doing something that maybe might not have been fully ethical. It's probably not great.
And there's that thing that they say, like, if you have a really good experience, you'll tell one or two people. If you have a bad experience, you'll tell everyone, So I think that thing of like not. And I think like I was saying, it really is up to us to make sure that we are being ethical in our usage, because if you look at like other outside of data and analytics, other industries which are now coming under like threat in some of the areas, and it is about people using means and ways that they thought would get around or find a loophole, which they got away with at the time and might not have been strictly illegal, but like it wasn't the right thing to do. I think they always knew it wasn't the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with us having this knowledge and understanding. It is a power that we have, and we need to make sure we're using it well and for the right reasons. So I do feel quite strongly about that. And then I think also like, and I'm quite proud of Dunelm, because Dunelm does do a lot of thinking around, things like sustainability, D&I, good and circular. And I think that thing of being part of the community, because I guess, again, it's one of these things of you are a big business and you do have a big footprint and a big impact, but also you're a business in a community. Each store sits in a different community, and like, how do you authentically be part of that community? And how do you actually service more than just business and retail requirements, but also like, how do you make sure that you are thinking about the environment and doing the right thing? We're also in a position of power to influence some of this. So like, it's not a case of being customer led, but also in some ways we could lead the customer on these journeys. So and it's, one of the things I really love about working for Dunelm, that they do these things, but really thinking about these and seeing where we can contribute and where we can lead, rather than just following where the society is going in a way. So I think that's again a really big opportunity for businesses in the future, both to differentiate themselves, but also have a real impact on the world.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I think that's really important. And what would you say is your favorite thing about working in the data space?
Oh,
It's a really broad question, but I'm just really interested.
I just
It's too many.
No, yes. I mean, I've always said data is about people. It really is about people. And I think it's that thing of like, really trying to have that impact on the organization and the people within it, to really be able to make a difference. And I think it feels like it's grown, and the awareness of data and analytics has grown. But for me, we've gone from data and analytics being something really good to have an organization which separates you from your competition and gives you an advantage, to now being just crucial to having, parity against competitors. And so being able to play a role in that in organizations and really influence and is really important. So I find that what makes the role meaningful for me. And of course, like, I'm a geek at heart, so the problem solving side of it, like, that's always like just the fact that I can have a career which requires logical reasoning and problem solving, which are like my favorite things to do, is quite exciting.
No, I love that. That's fab. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I think your insights are going to provide some great insights for our network. But thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
It was really lovely talking to you too. Yeah, and thank you for having me.